What's good, y'all? Here we are, back at it again. Another night, another video. And I want to talk about a topic that's very important to us all: education. And I mainly say education because, going throughout elementary, middle, high school, we all share different experiences, right? But there comes a time in your life, like I'm going to say for me, growing up looking at people who had jobs who just did the ordinary, thing that every 95 person does. I didn't like what I seen from those people, right? So it led me to want to get into business. First of all, of course, for the money. Like that's what most people want to start a business for. They want to make money. Not knowing that when they get into it, the business takes over your passion. So once I actually started a business for myself, there is a thing that I noticed. I'm not educated enough on a lot of these things. Yes, I can perform, but I'm not educated enough on the system and how this industry actually works. And that's what led me to this conversation, right? So we're talking about education overall. I used to think education was a joke until I got educated. Bachelor's, working on my master's, God willing, I get to my PhD and I become Dr. Eric B. You feel what I'm saying? So, staying on the topic of business, right? We got five biggest mistakes you make when starting a business. And this is just something that I pull from my recollection about things that I want to do different going forward in my future, right? So, I took it from the perspective of like a founder, a CEO, things of that nature, the basics. So we got founders tend to run into the same legal pitfalls early on. Here are some of the five most common legal challenges when starting a company, with brief explanations of why they matter. I state that because a lot of people will get into business not understanding the basics of contracting. In my master's, I took a contract law class where you learn all the basics of these different things, how cases are seen, how they're heard, different precedents they're set, and how they use that precedence to determine the outcomes of other cases, right? So it's very big in business. And I once heard from somebody that litigation is a business tool. So I had to understand the legality of business. So here we go. Choosing the wrong legal structure is number one of the five most common pitfalls that founders meet. So, choosing the wrong legal structure, why does this matter? Your entity type affects your taxes, liability, fundraising, and governance. So, the most common options are sole proprietorship, partnership, LLC, C Corp, and S Corp. The mistakes include forming an LLC when venture capital will require a C Corp, or falling, or my bad, or failing to separate personal and business liability. So if you know anything about venture capital, I'm not a big VC person because basically you just taking money from other people to have them come and take over and take more of the profits and do less work. If I'm being honest, that's basically in its simplest form how I see it. A venture capitalist. Yes, they have the money. Yes, they can help grow your business. Yes, they can help make things better. But ultimately, in the end, you owe more to them and you succumb basically to the shareholders, man, and the people who invest into you. It's not your company anymore, it's the investors. So you're not making a lot of decisions, the money is making the decisions. That's in every business. But when you got somebody who gave you that money, now you're tied to them and their money. You see what I'm saying? Fixing this later can be costly and disruptive. Um, I've had an extensive history with dealing with the legal system, whether that may be different things, but in business especially, man, yes, we talk about tens to hundreds to millions of dollars that it could cost you to restructure your entire corporation once you grow too big. Now, we ain't talking about on the small terms, but just say you do want to get a VC later on. Just say you do want to pass over some of the ownership and other things or how this company is structured. Yeah, it's going to cost you a pretty penny, man. So that's something to think about. Number two, in the common pitfalls founders make as far as it goes legality. Number two, founder equity and ownership disputes. Why does this matter? Because misaligned expectations between founders can kill a company. That's always when you got multiple people starting this thing with you. A lot of people I see nowadays, they like to do things solo, right? And even though that's more safe in some instances, I see it as the old saying, like, if you want to go far, take a team. If you want to go fast, take yourself. Can you do this? Yes. To me, is it more riskier? For sure, because you're relying on one brain and you're relying on one person to do all this work. If you know what it takes to build up a company that's going to actually have employees, you by yourself, it's going to take an act of God to get that off the ground. And I'm just being honest, or some extreme luck nowadays. So that's why it matters. But if you have no written founder agreement, that can kill you. Unequal or unclear equity splits. If you understand what equity is, it's just ownership, basically. Like you got a stake in the company or a share, right? Or however many shares. So that's what equity is, the equity splits. You guys are gonna be arguing about the money on down the line for sure. No vesting schedules leading to dead equity if someone leaves early. I like vesting because in corporate America, once you hit a certain amount of years, and sometimes once you hit a certain role, like a certain level in the company, you are vested, right? So they can match percentages of your payout. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you decide to leave or if they decide to fire you or anything like that, you retire, your time in that company at a certain position like creates that investment. So ultimately, it's something that's good for you as an employee. And financial institutions, they have this. This is a good thing, but at the same time, it can be destructive if you don't have that initial agreement upon foundation. You see what I'm saying? So, no clarity on decision making authority. This is one of the most common causes of startup breakups, for sure. And this how I see it. Like normally, I ain't gonna say normally because I don't have that information in front of me. But from what I've noticed, either you are a person who just doesn't want to work a job, which is totally fine. You're extremely talented and extremely smart, or you just have that alpha mentality that I'm gonna kill what I eat or I'm gonna hunt what I eat. That go out there and get it. Everything falls on me mentality. Those are usually the people that become entrepreneurs. Or I ain't gonna lie, somebody who's fed up, they can become an entrepreneur. But when you're dealing with people, right, the world is a people's game. You need people to move up in life. When you don't have the ultimate authority in a decision maker, I can see how that could be a problem, right? To me, what makes sense is everybody go with their strong suits. If like for me, I've had I want to say like two or three businesses now. I'm not the biggest people person all the time. I'm not the person that can go out and network super easy and put a smile on my face and mingle with the people and do all those things. It's just not appeasing to me at most times. But I had people with me who were extremely good at that. So when it came to that, hey, y'all do that. I'll pay y'all. I'll come up with whatever I need to do. I'll do it because that's y'all thing. Y'all are extremely good at meeting people, networking with people, bringing them out, actually getting them to come to the show. So yes, I feel like they should be the decision maker on that. But when it came to our moves, like logistically, and the things we did and the things we involved ourselves in and the events that we participated in, I made those decisions. So they might come to me and be like, "Hey, man, somebody wants to pull up here and do this for them." Nah, we're not doing that. That's a bad look. Or these guys run with these type of guys, it's gonna create a bad reputation. Or I just see trouble down that road. You see what I'm saying? So I feel like it should be a split decision making. It shouldn't ever be one ultimate, authority on decision making because different people had a different expertise. If that makes sense. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I think about that. Number three is intellectual property ownership issues. For sure. I see me personally, I think musicians run into this a lot because you're signed to a label. Your music, whether you produce it, whether you're just a rapper, a lot of different ideas and things that you come up with, there are intellectual property issues with that. You see what I'm saying? Because you're signed to somebody, you're basically up under a contract through them. So they kind of own your name, image, and likeness. You see what I'm saying? So that IP, anything that you come up with, is technically gonna be under their umbrella. And I learned this from dealing in corporate world where you sign an NDA, right? So I'm not talking about specifically what I was doing or the role I was serving in any capacity, but in contracts, you will see this that yeah, you can work here, you can make money, we're gonna give you a percentage off what you make, your commission or whatever. But any ideas, any new thoughts, any innovative thing that comes from you belongs to us. And that's why I say the IP ownership issues come from, because I've ran into that. So why does this matter? If the company doesn't own its IP, it's not fundable. You see? So trademarks, what's the copyright, all of those things like that. Big on the internet, those things matter. Those things matter a lot. And I haven't got to IP law in my classes, in my studies yet. So I'm not gonna speak in depth on that, but just from brief searching, through different case law and through different legal studies, I can understand, how that could be an issue. But why it matters. Founders or contractors never assigned IP to the company. I just talked about that. I literally just talked about that because I've been there. You know what I'm saying? Code or designs created before incorporation aren't transferred. Let's look at it like this. Like, I think it was Apple where you had Steve Wozniak, who was the brains of the operation. He did all the code and all the computer stuff. Where you had Steve Jobs, who was just a phenomenal salesman. But if they never had that agreement initially upon that thing taking off, then it's kind of like, where we go with this. You know what I'm saying? I can see it in that type of sense. I may be wrong on the whole story or the names, but let's not miss the message. Using open source software incorrectly. Yeah, I've dealt with, well, let's see, IBO, independent business owner. When I was doing my business owning thing, or when I was being an entrepreneur, I had software that was actually licensed to other companies, and I just used that software through them. So that's easier for me instead of trying to come up with my own software. Now, once you get big, let's say you go public on the market, or I ain't gonna lie, once you reach like a valuation that the SBA can't loan out to, if it's over their limit, then yeah, you should definitely be developing your own software then. But that's not most people out here, so there's nothing to worry about. You see what I'm saying? Trademark or patent conflicts. For sure. But if you invent stuff or you got innovative ideas and there's nothing like this on the market and you can trademark it or get a patent for it, yeah, for sure. Investors and acquirers scrutinize IP ownership heavily. They do, because it's going to be like, think about Amazon, right? Jeff Bezos went without a profit in there for like 2 decades. Now, once they finally become who the Amazon is we know today, now if they don't have that initial agreement, like I said, the IP, the patents, all those different things, it's basically an e-commerce site. But if you don't have ownership of all of those things, man, first of all, how you gonna get paid? Second of all, who you gonna know, like what percentage to get to who? You don't know these things, so it's extremely difficult, is what I'm saying. Number 4, on the common mistakes that happen when founding a business, legal wise, employment and contractor misclassification. Why does this matter? Okay, misclassification can lead to fines, back taxes, and lawsuits. Treating employees as independent contractors to save money, not complying with wage, hour, or benefits laws, missing required employment agreements or policies, no confidentiality or invention assignment agreements. This is as risky as you scale. And that's what I'd be saying. Like, as a small company, like, just say if it's just you right now, you and your partner, or you and a homeboy, you and a homegirl, at a small level, you don't really need these things because you're not paying out health care, you're not paying out overtime, you're not paying out benefits, you don't have no W-2 employees, you don't have any of these things. It's just you, which may be a sole proprietor. You know what I'm saying? So you don't necessarily need all these things, but as you scale, yes, employment and contractor misclassification is huge, because if you have somebody a contractor, which is a different tax form versus a W-2 employee, that's gonna mess up your whole business. It's gonna cause you to pay more taxes or miss paying on taxes, and it's also gonna mess up the contractor or the employee. You see what I'm saying? Depending on which benefits you give or don't give. And I ain't gonna lie, I kind of learned a little bit about that through insurance. Where you're providing insurance to a business versus you're providing insurance to an individual. When you're providing it to a business, it's different things, different boxes you have to check. Whether they pay employees a certain kind of wage salary versus hourly, whether they give employees full benefits or half benefits. It's a lot of things that goes into it. But yeah, man, employee misclassification and benefit misclassification is a huge thing, especially with contractors. So number 5, fundraising and securities law compliance. This is another big one, but for most big companies, like, a lot of this stuff won't apply to big companies. As you're small, it's not gonna matter so much, but you never know, man. And every dog has his day, and that day could come at any time. So you want to be ready. You want to have all these things like really in line before you take off. So that way, when you get big, somebody sue you, something happens, you don't run into all these different legal issues. But number five, fundraising and securities law compliance. This matters because raising money incorrectly can create serious legal exposure for sure. Who gives you money matters a lot. You can see it in presidential campaigns. You can see it in what's the thing I'm thinking about? NGOs, non-government officials, or non-government organizations, or you can see it through non-profit organizations. This is big. It's very big. So, selling equity without proper exemptions, for sure. Failing to disclose material risk to investors. Yeah, I think that's where a lot of the scams come in at, like these coins or like these different what is it, crypto. I feel like that's where it comes at because people are getting hot. People are getting big on the market and they're presenting these different financial instruments to people without telling them the risk. You see what I'm saying? And it's mostly average people investing in these. So this might be somebody's life savings. 12 to 15,000 might not be a lot to a deca millionaire or a millionaire, but to us normal people, that's a lot of money. And a lot of times it's all we have. I couldn't imagine putting 10, $15,000 into something and it crashes within months. You see what I'm saying? Because like right now, man, that may be all I have. I might have a little 15, 20 racks, and I blow that on some, I'm done. I'm back to square zero. And you still got student loans, you still got a house, you still got kids, the wife. Yeah, that's detrimental. So failing to disclose material risk to investors. Yes, informal handshake investments. Yeah, that I ain't gonna lie, man. I call it like the street effect, bro. If you still doing stuff like you did in the streets, man, on handshakes, like I say, I took the contract law class, and that was a big issue for a lot of things because yes, you can enforce a handshake deal, but it's extremely hard to, very rare and dang near impossible. But with the technology that we have nowadays, for sure, if you caught on camera saying it, yeah, your face and your name and all that behind it, yeah, you can get caught up in that, man. So issuing safes or convertible notes without understanding the terms, securities violation can trigger penalties and rescission rights. Yeah, I kind of think about this like as chargebacks. If you ever been in any kind of financial business, you understand like you offer people a service or a product, then you get a whole bunch of inflow of um financial, you know what I'm saying, finances from that work. But if it doesn't go all the way through or some messed up in the contract or something goes wrong, you get chargebacks, which means ultimately you still owe the money that you got, or you got to pay those people back. So that's a big thing, man. And it's security violation, whether it come to the stock market or just basic finances, it's gonna kill a business, bro. But that's the five, right? So some bonus closely related issues is poorly drafted customer contracts or terms of service. This could be for people who like running apps or websites, things like that. Like just say if you're a producer and you have a software where you're selling your it's intellectual property, but you're selling your beats and they're supposed to operate a certain type of way and they don't. But you didn't include this in your terms of service. Well, that person come back and sue you and say, "Hey, I did this didn't work, this didn't happen for me. I'm a Grammy Award nominated artist, and I'm about to sue you for everything." Yeah, that could come back to bite you in your terms of service. You know what I'm saying? Because you're providing the service. Data privacy and compliance. So that's huge. Huge. Data leaks happen all the time. But you having access to SII is what we call it in my career field, sensitive information. But you having access to sensitive information and that data getting leaked out and customers don't know or they aren't aware, even if they are aware, like it's just gonna cause a huge problem for sure. Co-founder departures without buy sell provisions. That's not something I know much about, but yeah, co-founder departures. I figure like if you're gonna leave a company, it better be for good reasons, especially if y'all on the up and up. You know what I'm saying? But here we go. Practical advice for founders. So use a startup focused lawyer early, even in the limited scope. I understand like mom and pop businesses, real small businesses, you may not have the funds to do that, but you have to do what you have to do in order to CYA. You know what I'm saying? If you know that term, then you know that term. But you always have to do whatever you got to do to CYA. So yes, get a lawyer. Second, get founder agreements and IP assignments signed immediately. And like I go back to the musicians because they get screwed over a lot on this. Um, your intellectual property can be a sum of things, a sum of things, right? And that intellectual property stays on your name for so long. I think, don't quote me, but like 80 years after you even pass away, it could still be yours. You know, so IP is a big deal, man. Yes, get founder agreements and IP assignments signed immediately. Don't copy legal docs blindly from the internet. I'm gonna be honest, but it's because I'm studying legal studies, not law school, but legal studies. But I understand it very well because a lot of the classes I'm taking now are the same classes they take in law school. I ain't gonna talk about that too much. But yes, a lot of people would take contracts from the internet or chat GPT and think this is going to apply in the real world without understanding precedents, without understanding judges, without understanding how the whole legal framework actually operates and how people operate within that system. They would take these things from the internet and try to apply them to real life, and it doesn't work like that. You see what I'm saying? Now, I'm gonna be honest. Have I done this before? Yes, I took a draft from some legal documents that was on the internet, and then I put it into my own words to fit my scenario, and it worked out for me. I actually won. So I would say just be careful with that. Now, if you're very savvy in the legal world, then yeah, you can do it because then you know the different ins and outs. But for the most part, if it's just the basics, no, don't do that, man. Don't do that. So we talked about all that. Let's talk about what to do. Here's a solo founder specific breakdown of the most common legal challenges, followed by a practical day one legal checklist you can actually use. So let's go on the checklist, right? Number one on the checklist, treating the company as you. So why do solo founders get burned? It's just you by yourself. Why do they get messed up in the process? When you're alone, it's easy to blur the line between personal and company actions. I can see that for sure. So the common mistakes are not forming an entity. My bad. Common mistakes are not forming an entity early, mixing personal and business finance. Yes, definitely always have an account strictly for business. Even if that's just a credit card, always have one strictly for business. Signing contracts personally instead of as the company, for sure. Because if you know anything, like you have certain protections under a LLC or under a company, however, a C corp, S corp, but they can pierce the corporate veil and go for you personally. If you sign something personally, you're personally held liable. That means they're not coming after the company; they're coming after your assets if you have any. You see what I'm saying? So yes, that's a big one. Now the risk associated with that is personal liability, tax issues, and credibility problems with customers or investors. Reputation is everything in business. You never want to lose it. Okay, number two on this legal checklist, choosing an entity that blocks future growth. We talked about that earlier. The structure, however you're going to do it when you founding a company is big. So the solo founder pattern is to optimize for simplicity now and regret it later, which makes sense, man, because you don't expect this thing like most people do. They hope to blow up big, but they don't necessarily expect for it to get where it's going to get. You know what I'm saying? So some examples is forming an LLC when planning to raise VC. VCs typically require a C corp. Ignoring state of incorporation issues. Yes, the state you're in matters a lot. You see what I'm saying? Whether you have to pay state taxes or you don't, whether your state permits this or don't. Like some states have gambling, some states don't have gambling. Some states have legalized marijuana, some states only do medical marijuana, or they just a no-go at all. So that is big depending on the type of business you're running and other things. Not issuing founder equity properly. If you're going to form a company, like let's say a tech company, yes, you need you need to establish some founder equity because this could get big, man. It could be an app that you use, or it could be an app that you create. Anything, man, it's big. But number 3 on the legal checklist, IP ownership gaps, especially pre-incorporation work. Solo founders often assume I built it, so I own it. Not if you don't own the intellectual property. And again, I'm gonna go back to the rappers and the musicians, man. This is them all the time. I made the song, I created it, I made the beat, so it must be mine. Nope, you're signed to a label, it belongs to them. Reality. IP created before incorporation must be formally assigned. Contractors must assign IP explicitly. Open source misuse can contaminate proprietary code for sure. The risk is investors will walk away if IP ownership isn't clean, for sure, because they don't want to be wrapped up in that litigation. They do not want to be wrapped up in them legal problems, and neither would I. Early contractor and vendor mistakes. Why this hit solo founders hard? Because you rely heavily on freelancers, and I see a lot of that. We could take this from like YouTubers or content creators. You just got Joe Blow editing your videos or doing your audio, or your cameraman, it's your homeboy from the hood, or it's your homegirl from college, or it's your colleague from work. And they never ever see this coming because they're relying on freelancers. You know what I'm saying? The common issues with this is no written contractor agreement, no IP assignment or confidentiality clauses, misclassifying contractors who function like employees. That's a big one. The risk in this is you may not own what you paid for, and you may owe back taxes. Again, I can see this a lot happening with content creators because they think I made the video, I edited, or I paid somebody to do that. It's under my name, it's on my channel, I own all this. It may not be true. It may not be true. Number 5 in the legal checklist for founders, informal money and legal shortcuts. Typically, solo founders behave like this, taking money or making deals casually. Don't do that. So some examples are if friends or family investing in you without proper documentation, could be problems. Promising equity verbally, like I said earlier with the whole contract issue, it can be enforced. Very rare, extremely hard. Don't do it. Copy pasting safes or terms without understanding them. For sure. Never do this. Okay. So the day one legal checklist for solo founders. This is like a minimum legal setup. Number 1 is your entity formation. Choose the entity type, whether it's LLC, S Corp, C Corp, based on your growth plans. Incorporate in the appropriate state. Get your EIN, your employee identification number. That's going to be what you use for your business taxes. It's like a social security number for your business. Issue founder equity to yourself. Properly document. Adopt basic governing documents, operating agreement or bylaws. Maybe both, for real. Number 2, founder legal hygiene, even if you're by yourself. Founder IP assignment, assign all past and future IP to the company. Confidentiality and invention assignment agreement. Set up vesting for your own shares. Yes, even if you started alone, still do this. So vesting protects the company if you later bring in co-founders or investors. Yeah, like I say, it it should take a couple of years. It should take some time in the process for them to get vested. You see what I'm saying? It's just better for you that way. IP protection. Assign all pre-incorporation IP to the company. Review open source licenses and use. File provisional patent if applicable. Conduct basic trademark search. Secure brand assets, your domain, handles in your company name. Contracts you actually need on day one is number 4, okay? Contract the agreement with IP assignment and confidentiality. Customer agreement / terms of service. Privacy policy, my bad. Privacy policy, especially if collecting user data, and an NDA template, but it can be kind of light on this end. And like I said, I've been through all of these different things, so I understand it on a deeper level just from being intertwined with these different type of legal instruments. But I understand it. I'm just trying to help anybody if I can. Number 5, money and compliance setup. Open a business bank account. Huge. Separate accounting records. Another huge one. Equity tracking. Even a simple cap table. Written documentation for any money received. Understand securities exemptions before fundraising. That's big. because a lot of people will fundraise, but that's really difficult. So I would say hire a professional. Fundraising, you can do it on your own, but the paperwork and the legal side and the actual finance side of it, yeah, you need to hire somebody for that. Unless you're very versed in that area, then you can do it. Risk reduction basics is number 6, and the last one. General liability insurance, if applicable. Cyber/data insurance for tech products, huge. We talked about that earlier. Document major decisions in writing and avoid signing anything personally unless absolutely necessary. That's like worst case scenario, man. You know what not to do on day one is don't delay IP assignments. Don't use contracted templates without IP clauses. Do not accept money just to get started. Don't do that. Ignore privacy laws because you're small is another huge, huge one. If you want, you can take this advice and you can apply it. It's pretty general. And a lot of people will understand it if they're at this step in their entrepreneurship or in their foundership, whatever ship you own, you'll understand it a little bit more if you're in it. Or if you've already started, then hey, you understand this a little bit more in depth. But like I said, I've been around dealing with these things and I kind of understand it from a different level. So that's all I want to talk about, man. Get educated, learn all you can, use Chat GPT, use Google, use OpenAI, whatever they got out there, man. Use all these different resources to your benefit. But I will say, hire an attorney or a lawyer. I know it's gonna cost y'all. Trust me, I'm paying out my pocket now for one. But yes, man, get the proper expertise and professionalism when it comes down to your business because you're gonna need it later. You never know if this thing gonna pop. You never know if it's gonna be big or what, man. You want to make sure all your ducks in a row if that time comes. So that's all I got for y'all tonight, man. Y'all have a great night. I'm out.
Nice.